I want to look at just simply two areas today, in areas that are common that we would see ourselves out of control. The first is in our stewardship. If we consider our stewardship, I want you to look at Luke chapter 12. And in Luke chapter 12, it lets us know about our stewardship. And I say stewardship, that simply just means that we have been entrusted with some things. God has entrusted us with talents and gifts and abilities. Peter, in verse 41 of Luke chapter 12, Peter says, "Lord, are you addressing this parable to us or to everyone else as well?" And the Lord said, "Who then is the faithful and sensible steward, whom his master will put in charge of his servants to give them their rations at the proper time? Blessed is that slave whom his master finds so doing when he comes." The parable that was told was about a thief that came at night and stole all of the spoils. Jesus says, well, if you knew what time he was coming, you'd be prepared and wouldn't let him steal. Earlier in the chapter, Jesus talked about being entrusted as a steward over things, and because there was a delaying of the Lord's return, that steward would begin to mistreat the servants that were there. And God said there'd be punishment for that. You see, without the guardrail, if you will, without having that moral compass that's up there to say this is wrong, this is right, left to our own devices, we will choose evil every time. Adam and Eve proved that. And because of free will, we are going to need something that will sustain us. Self-control was designed for that. So when we talk about stewardship in our own lives, when we talk about the things that God has blessed us with, some of us, I believe, still think that the things we have belong to us and not to God. I believe some of us still think that every gain that we have experienced has come from our own ability and not what God has given us. Furthermore, I believe that some of us still believe that we have a choice in the matter when it comes to helping people, when it comes to honoring and glorifying God with our bodies, when it comes a time that we must live a life in serving and self-control to the God we serve. We believe it's optional. This is manifest in the things that we do with what He's given us, with our talents, with our gifts, all of our abilities. Have we taken them for granted? Have we been living as if God has not answered any questions regarding that? Have we done that? Think about that. Are we living our lives in such a way as if God hasn't given instruction? Did God give us instruction on how we are to conduct ourselves in public? Of course He did. Did God give us instruction on how we are to raise our children? Of course He did. Did God give us instruction on how we are to behave in the household of God? Well, of course He did. But the question is, without the knowledge of these things, how can we have self-control in these things? It would be impossible. It would be impossible. So the need for self-control has been established. The source for self-control has been established. Now the question is, what will we do in reference to our self-control? We need to be controlled. We need to be controlled. Have you ever misspent money? Just spent money on the wrong stuff. Afterwards, too late. Rob Peter to pay Paul. Isn't that an interesting phrase, rob Peter to pay Paul? You ever been there before? You ever had bad credit? Truly knowing the bad credit is like all your fault? Bad stewardship. Out of control. I remember when I went away to college. Many of you that have been in college, you remember how the credit card companies prey on college students. And they will constantly send you credit cards. And you just need to be enrolled in school and they'll give you credit cards. Just give them to you. Literally, they just give them to you. even have a job. You're just in college. They give them to you. And if there is no one there to say, no, do not take that, then it's pretty easy to take them. I went away to college in '85, and in 1986 I had 8 credit cards. 8. I had a job making $5.50 an hour. I remember having an Amoco gas card, and I remember buying gas with that card. Never thinking I'm going to get a bill. I'm in college. Never thinking I'm going to get a bill. Just cha-ching, cha-ching. And interestingly enough, I remember one particular time I had some friends riding with me. And I said, hey, you guys want something? I got the card. Cha-ching! Kept doing it. All of a sudden, you know, at the end of the month, they sent a bill. They sent me a bill. $435. I'll never forget it. I almost lost my mind. Who's going to pay this? The person doing the cha-ching should be paying this. And the crazy thing about it is many of my friends who were in college did the same thing. The part that was missing is that many of them had parents that could just come up there, chew them out, write a check, pay the bill, and take the card. Mine didn't do that. They didn't have money to do that. So they stated the obvious. That's about all they could do. And I didn't tell them about it till this bill was about $1,100 then. Because wouldn't you think after a $435 bill I would have quit using the card? Wouldn't you think that? Wouldn't you think that they would quit letting me use the card at that point? You know they didn't. They just kept letting me use it. And I kept using it. So then when creditors started calling me, and you know how creditors make it look like you're going straight to jail? And they say a bunch of stuff and threaten you and all that kind of stuff. Like very nice when you get the card, very evil when a payment's late. Well, they were like that. And so I got scared, and then I eventually told my parents. And they said, you shouldn't have got the card. At $1,100, it's too late to say you shouldn't have got the card. But I had the card. But I had that, I remember the department store Jacobson's? I didn't even shop at Jacobson's. What am I doing at Jacobson's card? I had one though. I had a Sears card. I did shop at Sears. I had a Sears card. What was I doing? I didn't even have a house. What do I need a Sears card for? I had a Zales jewelry card. What in the world did they give me a jewelry card for? But understanding credit, just out of control. Out of control. Now, I don't know if along the way somebody said, you know, you shouldn't do that. Probably. I didn't listen. Well, why didn't I listen? Out of control. When you're out of control, that's part of being out of control. You don't listen. That's probably part of it. But that's exactly what happened. Can you imagine what my credit score would have been? I didn't even know there was such thing as a credit score then. Credit score, what's that? I didn't know. So, instead of paying all those big bills, oh, I was so stressed about those big bills, and I just didn't have money to pay those bills. So guess what I did? Changed my phone number. I'll show them I got a new phone number. So they couldn't find me, and I saw an episode of Sanford and Son, and they were having bill problems, and Fred Sanford kept saying, just put them back in the mailbox. So that's what I did. I just put them back in the mailbox. and then I moved, and with a new number and moving, well, how are they going to find me? Well, see, I didn't know that they didn't have to find me. They got my Social Security number, so they found that, and then when I understood the credit report by then, it was pretty late. That's just an example of being so out of control and never learning or having the knowledge that you need and no guardrail, just going foolishly. That's what it was, just out of control. Now the great thing is that story has a happy ending because 10 years later, I got it right and fixed up my credit. But that was a 10-year mistake. It took that long to fix. 10 years to fix it. But the idea is, I had to learn from that experience. If I didn't learn from that experience, I'd be in the same boat today.